In this video, I'm going to show you how to start making your foundation plan. Now, the first thing you want to do is make sure that you've got foundation walls and footings underneath all the exterior walls and below the porch. That also includes the garage. If it looks something like this, then you're ready to get started on the foundation plan. Remember the depth of this. We're putting those bottom of footing directly on top of the frost line, so it's about 3 feet below grade, and the grade starts about 1 foot below the top of foundation. So grade is here, then we go another 3 feet down. If all that's in order, let's get started. One thing I'll mention is that right here we've got a slab, and you should have a garage slab in place by now, but even if you don't, it doesn't matter. It won't have any impact on this drawing. Something that will have an impact on this drawing are doors that are supposed to be set down at grade level. So this door, for example, is set at the level for foundation -1, because again, we're assuming that the ground or the grade hits that line right there. So this has to drop down to that level. When you do that, you need to have a little cutout in the concrete, and that's actually going to show up in the foundation plan. Now there's a real quick, easy way to do this. You can see on the back of my house here, I've got a man door into the garage. It's set down at the right height, but it's not cutting into that concrete wall. So you're going to have a hard time getting that thing open and closed, getting through there. Here's what we need to do. Select the wall, go to Join Geometry, then select both walls, the top one and the bottom one. If you can't select it, then you might have the Select by Face turned off. I'm going to click on that wall, then the bottom one, and you can see it just cuts it out for you. And again, that will actually show up in my foundation plan. So let's go ahead and see what the foundation plan looks like. To begin, it should look something like this. There's a lot that's wrong. Okay, there's things appearing that shouldn't. There's things that should appear that aren't. We need to fix it. What it needs to look like is more like this one. That's better. We've got dimensions. We've got the walls that are very clear and easy to see. We've got annotations. We've got the walls that are showing with a solid gray fill, a pattern. We've got dashed lines for the footings, and we've even got some details to show what the concrete looks like. So in section. So there's a lot that we need to do to get our project up to speed. Let's go back and start making some of these changes. Before we go, actually, I want to point out, notice that what's happening with the solid gray fill here is that we're showing there's a material there. And the fact that you see these bold lines around the concrete is an indication that we're cutting through that material. Anytime you see a light line, you're probably looking at the outline of an object. Anytime you see a dark line, Revit always knows to show something with bold lines to indicate you're cutting through something. And people that understand construction documents, they know to look for bold lines to show that we've cut through an object. In this case, we've got, instead of solid lines for the footings, dashed lines, and that's because these footings are down inside the earth. They're being covered up by something. We are looking at their surface, or if there was no dirt in the way, we'd be looking at the surface, which would just give us a solid thin line. But again, it's covered up, so we don't see any material there, and we're showing dashed lines because it's down inside the earth. Now, what about this other pattern? We've got triangles and little dashes everywhere. That's the pattern that we always use to indicate concrete. And concrete is represented this way because it's comprised of both cement and aggregate. Let me show you a picture of aggregate. Aggregate is just gravel. And in this concrete, it's all exposed. You can see it out here on the surface of the concrete, but that's not normal. Most concrete is nice and smooth with all the aggregate deep inside, so that when you cut through it, you actually can see it. And going back to Revit, that's what we're looking at right here, aggregate and cement. So let's try to make ours look that way. Okay, back in the foundation plan. What do I need to do? Let's start by hiding things. You don't need your elevation markers turned on. If you select one, you can do VH, and that's category hide, so now they've all been hidden. And then the same thing with the sections, I'm going to do VH. If you only want to hide one of something, then you would type in EH, and I'm going to do that for the stairs because I don't want to turn off this stair. It's not that I want that to show up in the drawing, I just need to know where it's at, so I'm going to leave that one turned on. Okay, the next thing is that I've got an underlay, and that just makes too many lines overlap. It's the first floor underlay. So even though we'll have to turn it back on later so that we can put footings underneath that stair, for right now I want to turn it off. And we're going to change our underlay to none. It's already looking a lot cleaner. You can see that those areas where the doors drop down, we've got the cutouts in the concrete wall, and we're going to call that out as a block out so that the contractor knows he's got to leave an opening for doors. Here's my foundation slab. It's going to cover up the footings to the inside, so I'm going to hide that, EH for hide. And we're left with just what we need, but it's not displaying properly. Displaying properly would mean that we would see dashed lines right here in the footing, and we would see solid lines in the foundation wall like we already have, but inside the foundation wall, you'd see a solid fill, just like this, only it would be a light gray, not a blue. And the lines around the foundation wall would be nice and bold. Right now they're just thin. Okay, now there's a few things that we have to be aware of in order to make everything show up properly. And the first one is going to be our view range. And this is a complicated subject, so I'm just going to try to touch the surface and I'm going to go through it kind of on a basic level. But the way the view range works might better be understood with a 3D view open. And I might, in the beginning, want to go show you something in the first floor plan view. Okay, every single plan view and elevation, actually, and I take it back, every single plan view has a view range. And right now it's something that's been working for us in the background, but we didn't really know it. We haven't really had any reason to pay attention to it. And I just now realized those are out of place. Let me just hide those. So what's happening is we're cutting through our floor plan at a specific elevation, and it allows us to see things like windows here, but not here, and I'm not even sure why that is. We're going to have to investigate that as we go through this view range exercise. We can see windows over here, over on the side of the house. Now, that's all because my view range is set so that it will cut at a height where it goes right through those windows. And if the view range was too high or too low, we wouldn't see them. Now, let's look at it. You can open up your view range by going to VR. And here it is. And this explains perfectly why the windows in the front are not showing up. I've been tweaking this and messing around with it, so mine probably says something different than yours. But mine says I can see everything from the first floor 7 feet 6 feet upward. Okay, if it's up above 7 feet 6, I'm not going to see it. And then it says the cut plane is happening at 1 foot above the first floor, which is the reason why over here I'm not seeing these windows, because if you go from the first floor, which is somewhere at the bottom of the door, and you go up 1 foot, we aren't cutting through that window. We missed it, right? We also missed some windows on the back. We don't miss the doors. We can still see the doors in plan view because they go all the way down to the floor level. And then these windows, the only reason I can see these are actually almost inexplicable. I shouldn't be seeing them. They have a strange setting where as long as they're within my view range, I can see them even if I don't cut through them. So again, what is my view range? Well, at the top, it's 7 foot 6. At the bottom, it's 0, meaning it's perfectly level with my main floor. Now, I'm going to show you a cool tool if you have Revit. If you don't, you wouldn't be able to do this. But if I go into Revit and I say Show View Range, it's going to say select a plan from the project browser that you want to see the view range for. So I'll select first floor, and then there it is. The top that we were just looking at is 7 foot 6. It's up above all those windows. The cut plane, the area that I actually cut through the walls, is down here at 1 foot above the floor. And the bottom, and there's kind of two for the bottom. There's what we call the bottom plane and the view depth. They're both on top of each other. And when you combine blue and orange, evidently you get purple, and that's why it looks purple right now. But that means I can't see anything below that level, right? Anything that's below the first floor is out of my view, like the concrete. Let's see what happens if I were to change that. If I adjust my view range and I say I actually want to go down 5 feet, well, first of all, it's going to say you can't do that because the bottom can't be lower than the depth. So I would have to change this also to -5 feet. And let's see what happens. Over here, you can see it drop down. And over here, I don't see my foundation, but the only reason why is because I've got concrete and floors in the way. Oh, actually, I see it right here. That's part of probably a footing. Let's see. Should be highlighted in my 3D view when I select it. Okay, that's the wall right there. So notice I can see it when something's not in the way. Like right here, if I hide that, now I see this wall too. Again, why is that? It's because I'm now able to see everything down to this purple plane. And that's why I don't see the footing. Let's drop it down just a little bit more. View range, VR, and let's say that I go down -8 feet. -8 feet, and hit apply. The footing just showed up. There's the footing now. Let's see. Let's do that again. There's the footing. And there's a footing right here. Part of it's being covered up a little bit, I guess. I can see it. Actually, I can see the whole thing. So, again, I wouldn't want to see those things in my first floor plan. I don't want to see the foundation. So that is the reason why this is normally set to 0. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to set it to 0. And then the plane goes back up. The bottom plane goes back up, and I no longer see any of that foundation stuff. Let's unhide my slab. I still don't see any of the foundation stuff. Okay, now let's get back to these windows. I don't see the windows here either. And again, the red plane over here is shown as being below the windows. It's not cutting through them, and I need to cut through them if I want to see them over here. So we're going to go back to view range. We're going to change this to 4 feet high and hit apply. And you should notice, let's hit OK, that over here, okay, the red cut plane now moved up, and voila, I've got windows now showing up in my plan view. Okay, that's a quick rundown of how view range works. It's confusing, and it's going to always confuse you. And you're just going to have to get used to it. And the thing that I would recommend the most is that you keep these two always the same. The bottom and the depth are always the same. The top, make it, as high as whatever floor it is that you're looking at. And the cut plane, you just have to think about, what do I want to be able to see? So how high should that be? Okay, now let's go look at this for the foundation. And let's see what this is set to. And now I come over here and I pick foundation, and it moved it for me. And it looks like we've got some colors overlapping again. The green and the red, if you combine those, then you're going to get that yellowy color. So this means that we're cutting right at the top of what we're allowed to see. And what are we allowed to see? Everything between these two planes. So we're allowed to see the foundation walls. There it is. And we're allowed to see the footings. There it is. Whoops, and I accidentally unjoined those. Okay, and now understanding that, let's look at the view range and see where it's set to. Looks like it's set to 0 for the foundation level, not the first floor anymore. So the top of it goes right to the top of foundation. The cut plane is right there also, like we thought, and then both of them are set to -10. Okay, now there's more that needs to be said about this, but I'm going to wait because I want, later on in my video, you'll see how we should adjust that so that it changes the way we see this foundation view. Okay, we'll come back around. Another way that we can see changes to this foundation view is to go into VV, Visibility Graphics. And Visibility Graphics give us the ability to change the line work or the filled regions of whatever it is we're looking at in Plan View. Okay, and it's specific to a view. So if I change things here in the first floor plan, or in the foundation I won't be making changes to the first floor. I have to go into each view specifically, type in VV, and make the changes I want to see there. What changes do I want to see? Well, I want these to be dashed lines in the footings. Right now they're not, and I want them to be. So let's type in VV again, and actually first let's find out what category these are. It says that the category for this is called a structural foundation, which is going to be different than my wall. My wall is called, well, it's a wall, a basic wall. This is structural foundation. This is a wall. Okay, I need to know that because when I go into visibility graphics, I'll type it in again, VV. The category that I just looked at over here is what I have the ability to change over here. Let's go to structural foundations first. And you can come up here and you can do a search, or you can just click on any one of these and type in S, and it will take you to the S category. So I can quickly find structural foundation, or I could have said foundation, and that would bring it up too. See how that works? Okay, now it's going to say, if you want to make a change, these options where I have an override, those are the only ones that I can change. Currently, that's all I have the ability to change. Okay, and I would do it by clicking on override within the right column. How do I know what the right column is? Well, if there's an object that you're cutting through, you would use this column. And that makes me think I want to go back and show you this one more time. Am I cutting through these footings? How would I know? Remember that red plane? That red plane that is currently yellow because it's overlapping with the green? If I was cutting through the footing, if I moved that red plane down to the footing, then I would be cutting through it. But right now that cut plane is too high. I'm not cutting through this. So that tells me in visibility graphics for my foundation not to use the cut column because, again, I am not cutting through that. And I just want to change my structural foundation by its surface appearance. And that's what this column is for. Because if I'm not seeing it in cut, what am I seeing? I'm seeing the surface of the footing. It's kind of like this. Yeah, let's go over here and let's just hide everything. Element hide. I'm going to try that one more time. And oops. Let me pause and I'll get everything hidden. Okay, I've got it all hidden now. And let's say that I turn this off and I want to look at this from a straight up view. Top, what am I seeing? I'm seeing the surface of the footing. This is another way of looking at the surface of that footing. Just in 3D, I'm looking at the top surface of that footing. And when I do this, I'm looking at the top surface of that footing. And over here in plan view, I'm looking at, well, the top surface of that footing. So if you want to change the top surface, then you have to go to the category of projection surface category, and then we're going to do an override for just the lines, because I want those lines to be dashed. So I'm going to click on override, and I'm going to change this to hidden, and I can just type in H, and it will bring me to anything that starts with an H. And I think I want to go hidden 1/8. That'll look good. And then click OK, and then click OK again, and look at that. All my footings are now dashed. And I actually don't want to see the pattern. It's very light and subtle in my project. It might not be in yours, but I don't want to see that pattern. There's a surface pattern going on here. Just go back into your visibility graphics, do another search for foundation, and there we go. This is where I change pattern, and there's an override option. And I just want to say, I don't want to see your pattern, so I'm going to turn it off and click OK again. And now that's gone. And just to be clear, I'm talking about there were these little gray tick marks, but they were only on the footing. And now I don't see them anymore. You know where I would like to see a pattern is right here inside the concrete wall itself. Because technically, in a floor plan view for the foundation, we're supposed to be cutting through the concrete here. Not here, but yes, here. So if we go back to this analogy or this way of viewing our foundation here, again, what is my view range for the foundation? Let's visualize it. Show view range, go foundation. Okay, I'm not cutting through anything. What would change if I was cutting through the foundation? The walls themselves. Let's find out. I'm going to come over here and I'm going to say view range. And let's drop this maybe 6 inches. Just 6 inches is all. And oh, look at that. The green plane, which is the top, and the red plane, which is the cut, are now separated. And it made a pretty big difference over here in plan view, didn't it? Because now Revit knows that anytime a wall is being cut through, it's supposed to have thick lines. That's just a conventional way of communicating to anybody that understands construction documents. When you see bold lines, that means we've actually cut through something. And when it's thin lines, we didn't. And then also you're starting to see that there's a pattern inside here. And that happens to be what we call the aggregate pattern. It's just like what I showed earlier in those images. So this is actually looking a lot better now. There's still just one problem. I've got my aggregates, I've got my bold lines, I got my dashed lines. The only thing I don't have, there's no solid gray fill through the foundation walls themselves. And I like to do that because it makes this plan so much easier to read if I can just see what those walls look like when they have a fill inside. It defines them a lot more clearly than even these bold lines do. So let's do that next. In order to do so, I'm going to select any one of these concrete walls. I can turn this off now. Okay, so again, select any one of the concrete walls. Go into Edit Type, edit the structure. We're going to go look at its material assignment. Because even though I technically could change the appearance of these walls in visibility graphics, there's another way to do it that I think is a little more effective for concrete, and only for concrete. And what it means is anywhere else that I show concrete, when I'm cutting through it, just like I am here, I'll get this gray solid fill. No matter what view it is, I'll get that gray solid fill if I change the material. So that's why we've come to this material browser right now. Okay, and you'll notice that if you sort of poke around in any material, these different tabs show different categories of how this material can be displayed. If I go to the Appearance tab, it shows a picture, and this is what the concrete would look like if I come down here to Graphic Display Options and I change that to Realistic. I think it's that one. Yeah, that one. But I don't want this to look realistic, and in a plan view like this, it would never look realistic. That's more of like a 3D type of thing. In fact, let's just show you exactly what I mean so that I'm not going to be confusing. Right now this is just gray. It doesn't really look like concrete, other than concrete is also gray. But if I go to, let's try textures. Yeah. See, now that's the picture that you were just looking at being repeated, and now it looks like some kind of cast in place concrete. Now you might argue that it doesn't look very good, and I would probably agree with that, but still we know that the appearance that we're seeing here is being derived from the image that I just showed you. It's that image right there. Okay, and all of this is to say we don't care what shows up in the Appearance tab, because we're dealing not with appearance, we're dealing with graphics. We're dealing with a plan view, which is tied to the Graphics tab. Okay, and the Graphics has a few things, a few settings. In fact, one of them says there's a cut pattern. So anytime you cut through a concrete wall, this is the pattern that you're going to see, and this is the color that you're going to see. And if yours is anything different than what I show, then I would change it now. I would change that so that we get kind of a, yeah, just pick this color, a darker gray, medium to dark gray, right? We don't want it to be too dark, but if it's too light, we would barely see the pattern inside here. So go to this medium gray and click OK. And if you don't have concrete showing up as a pattern, then just go find it in this list. And then the last thing is we're going to add a background pattern. And that would be just a solid and a really light color. We want this to be light gray. I mean, you can select this light gray, but you may have to even dial it back a little bit. And then click OK and watch the overall effect coming up here. Click OK and OK. And this is our new foundation plan. Those walls are just so easy to read because of the way that we've chosen to display everything. Okay, I'm going to go back and change that to hidden line. And yeah, now our foundation looks like this.